All right. Hey, as a reminder, man, I'd love to encourage you guys to bring a Bible every week. All right. Next week, we're actually going to start a series in the book of Philippians, and we're going to spend 4 weeks walking through that book together. And so make sure you have a Bible. Man, that'd be awesome to take notes, to write stuff down. But also, if you want to pre-read and start reading Philippians before that, that'd be awesome, right? But today, what I want to do is spend a little time talking about fall retreat, all right? Most of us, a lot of us in this room, were last week at this time just loading up on a bus from Sky Ranch to come home. How many of you guys still feel like maybe you haven't recovered from it? Like you're still tired from the retreat, yeah? You did karaoke? Sure, so you guys sang so loud you ruined everyone's ears? That tracks. 8th grade boys, is that why most of you aren't here today? Yeah, is that why most of your group, because they can't hear still? Yeah, that's great. Hey, but dude, it was an awesome retreat. I love our fall retreats. It's so fun to get to hang out with you guys, spend time together. Your leaders, man, they're awesome for jumping in and being there with you. So leaders, thank you. And at the retreat, if you weren't there, our theme was true and better. We talked about how Hunter got up and spoke about how Jesus is the true and better. He's the true and better Adam. He's the true and better Abraham, Noah, all those characters in the Bible. But he's also the true and better life, the true and better friend, the true and better father, the true and better purpose. Right? Jesus is this true and better character in our life. And if we know him, he gives us purpose that is then better than any other purpose we could have, right? And Sky Ranch is this really interesting place for me, right? So in my life, I grew up as a camper going out to Sky Ranch. So when I was 8, I started going out there every summer, right? And Sky Ranch then became the place where every year I would go out as a camper year after year and have this kind of camp high, this mountaintop experience where I experienced God in these new and cool ways. And then I would come back to my normal life and it would feel different. It would feel boring. It would feel like God wasn't close, right? And Sky Ranch is also why I know Jesus. Man, I had counselors who introduced me to him for the first time. And so I wanted to be a counselor and work at a summer camp. And so when I was in college, I worked at Sky Ranch for 4 summers. I loved it. My first summer there, I remember I got there, I was so excited, I was having all of this fun, and I was a counselor, so I was 19, right? And I was hanging out, I worked with 7 and 8-year-olds specifically. So me and 3 other guys had these cabins of 27 and 8-year-olds, and it was wild, right? And the first half of the summer passed. It was so fun. I felt like, man, God was so close to me and I was growing and all these things were amazing. And then the second half of the summer hit. And what happens is, if any of you have ever gone to camp or know anything about the camp world, there's people who work half the summer, right? And there's then people who work the first half or the second half or all summer, right? And so all of these counselors, these people who had become really good friends with, left. And this new group of people came in, and it was this weird experience for me. I'll never forget it. I was at camp, surrounded by 1,000 people, and I felt so lonely, right? I just felt like I didn't know anybody, and nobody knew me. And the funniest part was my own brother. He was in the cabin next door, right? My flesh and blood was living there. And I felt so alone. It was such a weird and just the irony of the situation is crazy because I was surrounded by people, but I felt just alone and I felt distant from God and I felt like no one knew me and nobody saw me. And it was such a weird experience for me. And as I processed through that, as the weeks went on, what I learned in that moment was that I needed to rely on God and not rely on people, right? Because God sees us differently than other people do. And there's a story that we're going to look at really quickly in Luke a story you guys probably know, right? So if I say the name Zacchaeus, do you guys know a song that goes with that? I see Avery mouthing it in the back, right? What do we know about Zacchaeus? He was a wee little man, right? Which is rude, right? If he was just short, like, let's don't make fun of him, right? But here's what it says. This is Luke 19. We're going to read quickly through some of the story of Zacchaeus. It says this: Jesus entered Jericho, and he was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. So this immediately tells us some things. He's in the city of Jericho. Jesus enters into this city. This is pretty far into Jesus' ministry. A lot of stuff has been happening. So people have heard about Jesus. Zacchaeus, what do we find out about him? He is, what is his job? Tax collector, right? Do people like tax collectors back in the day? No. Do people like tax collectors now? Nah, right? But specifically, back in the biblical times, right, tax collectors were people who collected tax for the Roman Empire, and they took more than they were supposed to. And so this tells us that Zacchaeus was wealthy, which means what? He took a lot of money, right? So Zacchaeus wasn't, like when we think about Zacchaeus at the beginning of the story, he probably wasn't very well liked by people, but he probably also wasn't a very good dude, right? Like he took a lot of money in a weird legal way, but like he still was taking from people, right? And so it says this: he wanted to see who Jesus was. He'd heard about Jesus and he wanted to see who Jesus was. He really was interested, right? It says, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. Preach, right? Straight up. Some of you get that. You know what that feeling's like, right? It's rough. So he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. So Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus. He couldn't because he was short, real problems, right? And so he climbed a tree so that he could see Jesus. And here's the part of the story that I love. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and he said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. Jesus, as he was walking through, he looked up to where Zacchaeus was. Jesus saw Zacchaeus before he even physically looked at him, right? He knew where Zacchaeus was. He knew he had climbed into this tree. He also knew his name, right? He knew everything about him. So Jesus saw Zacchaeus before Zacchaeus could see Jesus, right? Jesus saw him and he knew everything about him. He knew the fact that Zacchaeus had been doing things that he shouldn't be doing, right? He knew the fact that Zacchaeus probably wasn't liked by all of the people in the crowd. And yet Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come down from that tree. I must stay at your house. Jesus invited himself into Zacchaeus' house, which, man, as an adult seems wild, right? Because I don't want to invite myself to anybody's house that feels so imposing, right? But Jesus does this to Zacchaeus, and then the people, right, they began to mutter, and they're like, what is going on? How would Jesus do that? And what it shows us is Jesus' incredible love for everybody. And so what I want you to see from this is that Jesus sees you. There's a quote that I saw. It said, the beauty of God is that regardless of whether we feel people see us, God sees us. And even if we don't feel worthy, God sees us. And so we came back from this retreat. We talked about Jesus being the true and better life, the true and better purpose. And you might have experienced God in a different way on this retreat. Right? Maybe, man, just being there for 48 hours, being surrounded by your small group, with your leader, with your peers, man, you went, God, I understand who you are. There's something about this place that I'm in where I see you more clearly than ever. And you came back to your normal life. You came back to the Dallas area, to Carrollton, to the Colony, to Plano, to Frisco, wherever you live, and you came back into the normalcy of life. And as you did, those feelings of being close to God, and they maybe went away. And you might be sitting here going, I feel like God is so far from me. I feel lonely like I did years ago. I feel disconnected from God. But what I want you to see from this story is that God sees you always. Man, he knows you and he loves you. And he invites you to come down from that tree, to come to him and to always be united with him. So those feelings you had at camp, that excitement of being closer to God, of being honed into what he was doing in your life, and that can exist here. You have small group leaders. You have peers in your small group who want to point you to Jesus always. They want to help you understand that Jesus sees you and he loves you no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what your home life is like, no matter what you personally are processing through. God sees you and he loves you. And in small group, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more. Like, what's the past week been like for you? How has it been as you've processed through what's going on? And in a moment, Tim is going to make his way up here, and he's going to sing another song, a song we sang at the retreat a couple times. And what I want you guys to do is, as you listen to the song, as you sing the lyrics, just remember that God sees you and he loves you and he is close to you at all times. And that over and over again, time and time again, God loves you, and he does the same thing that he does, that he's been doing for like all of creation. And coming closer to people and loving them and asking them to just accept who he is and accept who they are because of it. And so time and time again, God is chasing after you and loving you, and he sees you no matter where you are. And so you guys, I just want you to process that for a few moments as we sing this song. I'm going to pray for you, and then we'll sing these words together. Jesus, we thank you for awesome times where we get to go out to a retreat, where we get to go to nature and escape the normalcy of life. I pray for our students, God, that as they did that, they were able to see you more clearly, and they could feel more seen and more close to you. And that, God, as they've continued through life, as they've processed through coming back to the normalcy of life, God, that I pray each one of them would understand that you still clearly see them. That you are running after them like the Father running after the prodigal son. God, that you love them, that you're pursuing them deeply. God, as we sing these words, let that feel true for each one of us. Let us know that we are loved, God, and that you deeply are pursuing us. In your name we pray, amen.